As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome to the Crunch Time Sports Show with Jeff Iafrate and Booner. Today, we have plenty to get to. It is Wednesday, which means John Maakaron will be joining the show. The great John Maakaron covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated. He'll be joining us later in the first hour. Russell Brown, who covers the Detroit Lions, talks NFL draft for Lions Wire, Detroit Lions podcast. He'll be joining the show as well. Going to be a great one today. We're going to talk Drew Petzing. We're going to talk Mike McDaniel. I'm Rossine Brown. Went at some Lions fans, actually not some, a lot of Lions fans that disagree with the Drew Petzing hire. And I guess I'm in that bucket because I crashed out 2 days ago. So we're going to talk about all of it. So don't worry. I do have an update. Boone is out tonight with food poisoning. So Boone is battling right now, and we love him. So get better, Boone. All right. So Boone, he's, you know how hard Boone works. He's one of the hardest workers ever, and he's dealing with some food poisoning issues. From I think he was mentioning he ate some pre-cooked chicken. Didn't go his way, so he is out tonight. So it'll be me and the doc, me and Russell Brown. I'll hold it down tonight. So get better, Boone. And we'll hold it down today. So hopefully you guys are all having a great day. Appreciate you all. See Donkey Kong in there, Steve-O baby. Laner in there, Jay Hart for the hits. We appreciate you tuning in. Hit the like button on the stream. I would really appreciate it. By the way, I've been doing this thing lately. And I'm going to change the title. It's not Dan, it's Drew Petzing. I've been calling Drew Petzing Dan today only. I don't know why, so don't ask me why. I don't know. I've been calling the guy Dan Petzing all day, just randomly. I've been saying Drew Petzing the last 2 days. And then today I've been calling the guy Dan Petzing. Okay, I'm still trying to learn the guy. Okay, I'm trying to learn more about the dude. So forgive me on that. Yes, it's Drew Petzing, not Dan. It's fixed. David Petzing. Spenny called him. Yeah, that's. I just want to call the guy Dan for some reason. Dan Petzing. I don't know why. So yeah, it's Drew Petzing, obviously. I mean, I know that, but for some reason I'm calling the guy Dan Petzing. So forgive me on that. But before we get to the Dan Petzing, I guess we kind of are going to talk about it, but I have an update for you guys on Mike McDaniel. So Mike McDaniel yesterday took the Chargers job. He was in play, for the Lions, I thought, I guess, until it came out that he wasn't a fit. And also the Buccaneers job, the Eagles job, and he took the Chargers job. Part of that was staying in California, I believe, where he lives, working with Justin Herbert. So that was a decision based solely on personal preference and the ability to work with a really good quarterback. So I can see why he went to the Chargers. He wants to stay in warm weather. So I don't think it's because the Lions, just weren't a great fit. I just think, it made a lot of sense for him to stay in California. And then this report came out today. So Jeff Darlington, who's really well connected in the NFL, tweeted this out. The Bucs and the Eagles both pursued McDaniel as their top OC target. The Bucs were especially diligent in their courtship, and McDaniel was very engaged with them throughout. Ultimately, the lure of getting back to California and coaching Justin Herbert proved strongest. Okay, so the Eagles were all in. The Bucs were all in. And I don't know if Baker Mayfield tweeted out to Kevin Stefanski and took a shot thinking they were going to get Mike McDaniel, but that's not going to happen. But they missed out on him as well. Now, this report also came out from the Eagles side in the Eagles media, and this is where I want to bring up. It says here, the Eagles will have to broaden their search for a new offensive coordinator after Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll didn't want the job. Okay, that was reported. I don't know. They didn't take the job. Because it was reported that Brian Daboll wants to be in Buffalo like he was prior, working with Josh Allen, and Mike McDaniel took the Chargers job. And it says here, Philly was even willing to give Mike McDaniel and Daboll full autonomy. over the offense, per Jeff McLean, who covers the Eagles. Seems like no one wants to work for the team, which I think is hilarious. But here's where and this is where I think is very interesting. Remember this, all right? You see this part where it says Philly was even willing to give McDaniel and Daboll full autonomy over the offense, which means essentially full control. I think that's where the Eagles' job and the Lions' job were different. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying the Eagles with Nick Sirianni, I'm just reporting this, okay? So chill out. They're willing to give their OC full control, right? When they hired Kellen Moore, unfortunately, when they hired Kevin Patullo, and now they're trying to get Mike McDaniel or Brian Daboll, they were willing to give these guys full control. The Lions, I think with Dan Campbell, Dan's very involved in the offense, and rightfully so, because they've been a really good offense. And then you see the report that the Lions didn't see Mike McDaniel as quite the fit, which, can be interpreted, in different ways. I read a report that I think defends Dan Campbell a little bit. And we have to remember this. I forgot who put it out, but it was a respectable reporter. This wasn't some random X account. It was essentially saying that Dan Campbell really liked Mike McDaniel. Okay, so he really liked Mike McDaniel. So I don't think it had to do with Dan just being like, oh, this guy's an idiot, or we don't want this guy to coach here. I think it comes down to the simple fact of if you're Mike McDaniel and I'm not saying Mike McDaniel is the second coming of Mike Shanahan, but what I am saying is he's a very good OC, very good offensive mind, okay, based on where he's been in his career and what he did in Miami like 2 years ago. I know the last 2 years hasn't been as good. He wants to have some control. Like, you got to think of it from Mike McDaniel's perspective. Like, I have my beliefs, just like Dan Campbell. I have my beliefs. I know what I'm good at. I know what I want to run, and I'm trying to get a head coaching job. So if I'm going to get that head coaching job, I want to do it the way I see fit, right? Offensively. Maybe Dan Campbell has some slight differences with, the offensive vision on some things, which I still think, in my opinion, I'd still hire Mike McDaniel. He's that good. But anyway, that's how Dan sees it. So I think that's where essentially Drew Petzing comes into this, because Drew Petzing basically shares the exact offensive ideology. And I don't mean this disrespectfully, Dan Petzing isn't Mike McDaniel in terms of resume, where Mike McDaniel essentially is in play for head coaching jobs and Drew Petzing's not. So, I'm not saying Dan Campbell believes he can bully Drew Petzing around, but what I'm saying is Dan Campbell is like, hey, Drew Petzing's going to run my offense. I'm not going to probably lose this guy right away to be a head coach. I mean, they could, I guess. But Drew Petzing's going to do what Dan Campbell sees fit and also kind of run his offense, which is very similar to Dan Campbell. I'm surprised. Like, the way Mike McDaniel has been running things in Miami and what their core is on offense seems like it would be a really good fit for the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, they run the ball really well. They push the ball downfield. They have a quarterback in Tua, which, Mike McDaniel had success with, and Tua's not a good quarterback, but a lot of the stuff they did offensively was timing based, based on, you want a quarterback that's very accurate. So it is a little confusing why they wouldn't share a lot of the same ideologies, but the whole point of this is, even if Mike McDaniel and Dan Campbell had similar visions, he wasn't going to come here. Okay. He wasn't going to come here. He was always going to go to Los Angeles and coach Justin Herbert. That's where he wanted to be. He wanted to be in California. So, even as someone like me who wanted Mike McDaniel, it wasn't going to happen. I mean, I actually think it's hilarious that no one wants this Eagles job. And to be honest with you, as much as it's enticing given the Eagles' success, can you really blame anybody for not wanting that Eagles job? You have A.J. Brown. His future's uncertain. Jalen Hurts is reportedly a tough quarterback to work with. There's drama in the locker room. Philly's a tough city as it is to really be any coach, there. I mean, you get one play call wrong, let alone a bad game, and you get absolutely shredded, and they want your head on a stick. I mean, it is a tough market. So no wonder they're going to have to settle for probably Matt Nagy. But I think the biggest thing here is Mike McDaniel's in the AFC. So you don't have to, he's not helping out Tampa. He's not helping out Philly. So I'm curious what Philly ends up doing. If you hire Matt Nagy, go ahead, dude. I'm cool with that. And I don't think Matt Nagy's a terrible coach, but He doesn't put fear in my eyes, okay? He does not. Kellen Moore was a different story. Kellen Moore's an excellent offensive coach. Matt Nagy, on the other hand, he did some good things with Mitch Trubisky, but he doesn't scare me as an offensive coordinator. I mean, I'm just being honest. AG's burner. He says Dan let Ben, mad scientist. Ben left. Now he wants that standard, but without the actual man for the job. Now, I think we have to remember this too. And I'm a big Ben guy. I don't have to say it. You guys know it. That was probably in my career. I've missed on a lot of takes. That was probably one of the takes I'm most proud of is wanting to hire Ben Johnson when he was a pass game coordinator, because I believed at the time. I changed my views because it worked with Ben, but hiring from within and how that's, amazing for any organization. Now I'm kind of realizing, well, maybe that's not always the right way to do things. But at the time, it was like, hire this guy. When he was working with Dan, like Dan still had a heavy influence on what he wanted the offense to look like. Ben's best trait, and you see it now with Chicago. Ben does a lot of the similar things in Chicago, at least philosophy-wise, he did with Detroit. But also you see a lot of those Dan Campbell tendencies, going forward on fourth down, being aggressive. Like that's definitely the Dan Campbell effect. I mean, you can clearly see that when you watch the game against the Rams, but Dan had a heavy influence on that offense. So, maybe Dan's preference isn't hiring a guy that has, like a Brian Daboll or, Mike McDaniel, one of these guys that who's a big personality, kind of another alpha male, to come in there and, try and challenge the way that the Lions do things. Because let's be real here. Booner's brought this up, and I agree with him 1,000%. The offense isn't a massive problem, okay? It is not. The offensive line is an issue. Running the ball at times is an issue. I think every time they were held to under 100 yards rushing, they lost that game. So, I mean, clearly there's things they need to fix on offense, but it's not like this team is being hindered by their offense. Their offense is very good. What the problem is, and what Booner brings up, and I agree, is their defense. And I've always said this. I said this when they were 15-2. When everyone was telling me, Jeff, they're going to win the Super Bowl. No, they're not. That's not a Super Bowl defense. You look at it right now in the championship games. Rams, Seahawks, Broncos, Patriots, all very good scoring defenses. All defenses that can affect the quarterback, create turnovers. They do a lot of things really well. It's a defensive game. It always has been, right? So, like Drew Petzing does things that the Lions need, which is, his run schemes, which we're going to see. I brought up the Clayton Adams point yesterday and the day prior, but that's his specialty, running the football, play action, under center, 13 personnel at times. But there's I can see why the Lions like him. It's just really going to come down to what it looks like in the regular season. I mean, he gets his play calling stripped away. It's a massive indictment on Dan Campbell. There's no question about it. There is no question about it. By the way, shout out Boone. He says there's a chance I've been hit with something called the flu. Shout out to Boone. He's battling right now. Appreciate you, Boone. Get out of here, man. Go to bed. Jesse, he says, Mike, said he wanted to go back to Cali and be close to home. I love how Lions fans act like the Lions fumbled. I wonder if Zach Robinson got the gig, people would still be pissed. I wouldn't be thrilled with Zach Robinson either. So I'm not going to act like Zach Robinson would have been the savior. I wasn't that thrilled on Zach Robinson, if I'm being honest. I mean, I understand the Jared Goff connection, and I would have been like, okay, but kind of, Zach Robinson wasn't going to make me crash out less as it is. So it's, I'll say this though, with the whole, the Drew Petzing thing is, again, a lot of the things he does really well, like the third down point I brought up yesterday. Sixth lowest 3-and-out rate from 2023 to 2025. Only teams above the Cardinals during that time: Lions, Bills, Cowboys, Rams, 49ers. Okay, all respective offensive teams. Let's bring on someone who can help me dissect this hire, because he's been battling on X, going after people, defending Drew Petzing, and he's one of the brightest guys I know that at least can talk the game of football, covers the Detroit Lions, does a really good job. Lions Wire, Detroit Lions podcast, our good friend Russell Brown. Russell, how are we doing, my friend? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you, man?
I'm great, Russ. I'll admit, crashed out 2 days ago. Okay. Mental health issues, call it whatever you want. I've been crashing out, but here's the thing about crashing out for me. All right. I'm very emotional. I react. I see Drew Petzing. I go, who the hell is this guy? He's shorter than Kyler Murray. I don't know who he is. And doing more research, and we have great media here in Detroit, I'm learning more things. You dove right into the film. So now that we're 2 days removed, where are you at with the Drew Petzing hire for Lions fans that may have still concerns over a guy like Drew Petzing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with people out there, and anybody that follows me knows I'm not an overly analytical guy. I'm more of a scheme. How do they fit the system? Because that to me is ultimately what matters. What the PFF grade and what the EPA number is, it's great. I get it. It's a tool. Use it. It's good to determine and help determine who is good and bad and whatever. But at the end of the day, like if things aren't working schematically, there's a reason why that grade is what it is. And there's a reason why the Lions struggled last year getting to the second level. Graham Glasgow, for example, gave it everything he's got. Maybe he comes back, who knows? But he really struggled at times getting to those second level defenders. Meanwhile, when you watch the Lions run game last year, it didn't always feel like they had the right angles or the right timing or pacing, whatever you want to call it, to get to the second level. You watch the Cardinals, regardless of who he had back there running the football or playing up front on the offensive line, he was scheming things with a lot of pin and pull and getting angles to the second level, but also getting out on to the edge and in space. And the more that I dove in, the more that just the dots started to connect. I felt like Charlie in It's Always Sunny, like connecting the dots. And I'm like, this makes sense, because I was out of left field too. When it happened, I was like, wow, that's out there. Didn't see it coming. And I just was like, all right, I'm going to jump in. We're going to see what it looks like. Cause I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch a lot of Arizona Cardinals last year. I know there's a lot of people in this city that did not watch a lot of Arizona Cardinals. If they're telling me otherwise, good for you, but no way. So yeah, I mean, the more that I got into it, the more that I see that it fits with some of the gap stuff, gap scheme run stuff that they want to do, the power stuff they want to do, the pin and pull stuff he does is excellent. I don't know if I've seen anybody draw that up. And I know people will point to their offensive line coach from 2023, Clayton Adams, right? They're going to point to him, and it's like, I hear you, but I was watching Week 7 against the Packers, a team that the Lions struggled against, and he was running pin and pull all over them. And then you go down the last 6 games of the season, and he's getting 125 yards, 200 yards. You go to 2024 Week 2 against the Rams, they put up over 250 yards on the ground and 41 points to beat the Los Angeles Rams. And I get it, Clayton Adams was there, but like he is a big piece to that. And I just feel different regarding Drew Petzing over John Morton. I just feel different. And I don't know if it's because with Morton, we didn't see him call plays until 2017. And there was that gap, of like 7 or 8 years. And there was a little bit of that gap where this is all kind of fresh and new. And I think that's why I like it, because he has seen a lot of the modern day defenses and he knows how to adapt, from a week to week basis. Not always those second half adjustments. Those aren't really a thing, per se, but I think this is just one of those things where the more and more that I researched it and looked into it, he's a smart guy, and they needed that smart guy to kind of come in there and refresh the room a little bit, because it just felt like John Morton was very stale and very to his roots. And I don't know if he was willing to change. I'm speculating, but the more I look at Drew Petzing, the more that I really like what I'm seeing from the run game perspective. And I know there's things that they've got to retool. And I'm not saying it's a home run, knock out of the park type of deal, but it just feels like a really big positive. And I think some of the overreaction was a little much yesterday. Not saying you, I'm just saying in general from fans.
It's okay. I tweeted I dropped to my knees at a Walmart after he was hired. So I mean, I tweeted out some crazy things. But I'll ask you this, because I think it's relevant now. And listen, we have more information on Mike McDaniel. Dude wanted to live in Cali. Dude wanted to coach Justin Herbert. Like, we kind of know how that was going to go. But when you see the tweet or the reporting that maybe the Lions didn't maybe feel he was the right fit, what does that say to kind of you? Just because you watch the film, obviously Drew Petzing as a fit is more perfect, but I'm not saying you watch it. No one's watching Dolphins football, okay? Dolphins offense, but just the differences between a guy like Mike McDaniel. I thought listen, I watch football. I'm more of the fan. I'd put myself in that category, but it seems like Tua, a timing quarterback, more accurate, like Jared. They got weapons that obviously they want to push the ball downfield. Tua has some limitations when it comes to that. And on paper, it seems like it would be more of a fit, but maybe what am I not seeing with that reporting? Maybe that you can see.
I'm with you. He was at the top of the list. I text some buddies, man, if we got him, this would be awesome. Run game fix, this, and that.
Yeah.
But to the same point of that, like, and again, I don't know if that report of like Dan Campbell liked him, but this wasn't a fit, so on and so forth. I really don't know how much truth there is to that. And I only say that, and I'm not knocking anybody that's in major media and how they report things, but like, we didn't even know Drew Petzing was on the docket. Like,
right.
If we don't know that, how the hell do you know what's a fit and what's not a fit? I'm sorry. Like, that's just the truth. And that's what the matter is. And if people don't like it, unfollow, don't put me on your show, whatever. I don't know, but like, that's the truth of the matter. Like, I'm just a very honest guy. Right. So like, but schematically how he would fit and maybe why it didn't fit. Like, I do wonder when they sat down and like, hey, Mike, what does your Monday practice look like? What does your Tuesday practice look like? What does your process look like? And if that process doesn't align with you after going through what you just went through with John Morton and some of these other coaches, if it's not aligning with you, then it's probably a bad idea to roll the dice again, because guess what we're going to do next year? We're going to be right back to square one going, he struck out again. Another OC's gone to be a head coach because Mike McDaniel's going to be another head coach. Like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, maybe that's why he spent a lot of time in Tampa, like just kind of figuring that stuff out. So I don't know. The more that I look at it, like, I get it. It's a sexy move. It's shiny toy. I get it. But like, when you watch some of the passing concepts, the timing seems off, and maybe that's Tua, because I don't think Tua is very good. But at the same time, like, I don't think schematically it would have mattered. I think you're getting somewhat of an upgrade for a guy that's going to be invested in being here. Maybe not necessarily for 7 or 8 years, maybe that'd be awesome, but like for the next 2 to 3 years. And it allows your team to be way more cohesive, and it just allows things to flow, and it allows you to build, especially if this is going to be an offense that is going to get a new offensive tackle, whether it be left or right tackle, then you get a new center. You're going to need that group to be cohesive. And if we're going through this constant change for the sexy move and the sexy play and just churning out offensive coordinators into head coaches, like, that's great for the resume. But at the end of the day, like, it's going to cause a lot of problems, I think, for young offensive linemen. So I think that's kind of where I land with Mike McDaniel further on that. Like, I am curious, is he a guy that is into a physical practice? Like, how does his practice setting go? Because we know here in Detroit, it is nonstop all the time. And if you're not on board with that, I don't know how you fit here. Like, and that's just the reality of it. And I get how we want to react and say, hey, this is the guy that's going to get us over the top. But at least we had the conversation with them. You know what I mean? Like, It wasn't like we didn't take the cart and go down the aisle. We took the cart, went down the aisle, and brought in a couple different names. But this is the one that they landed on with Hank Fraley and those types of things. And I think that matters. So I'm cool with it. And it's unfortunate. I wish Mike McDaniel all the best. I think it's a great fit for him in LA with the Chargers. I think he works well with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, because it's just kind of different. But at the end of the day, like, I think we got the right guy. And I'm hoping the Lions brass and this fan base just takes a breather. Don't get mad at St. Brown and his comments on his podcast. Just take a breath and let this thing play out. Let's get through this offseason and see where we stand.
I want to ask you about the 13 personnel thing, because I think it's very interesting. It's where the league's kind of heading. I mean, you see some of the brightest offensive minds. Yeah, the Rams. I was just Sean McVay, one of the brightest offensive minds right now. They're utilizing those 3 tight ends, and Matthew spreading the ball around. But the thing is, people hear that, they're like, "Oh, okay, wide receivers. They're just going to dip in production." I mean, the Rams you got Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, and they're still using. I mean, you could still find a way to spread the ball around. I think what Drew Petzing does so well is, and this is per Colton Pouncey, 1st and 13 personnel last year, 26th and 11 personnel, 7th and 12 personnel. Number one, your thoughts on kind of the league shift with 13 personnel, and for people that aren't as familiar with the X's and O's side, why that's valuable. And then also kind of mention, you can give your thoughts on Drew Petzing, because he's kind of moving in that new innovative way of the NFL.
Yeah, well, and I will say this for Lions fans that are like, well, we have 3 receivers, this is going to jack everything up. There's in just coaching, there's a term, KYP, know your personnel. And he's going to know that he's got 3 receivers. He knows all about Amon-Ra. He knows what J-Mo brings. He knows these guys. So 11 personnel is still going to be a thing. Everything is still going to align with what Dan Campbell ultimately wants. But yes, the 12 and 13 personnel stuff is a real thing, and it's shifting that way. Maybe it's not as high of a percentage as it used to be back in the 90s or 80s or anything like that, but it's coming back just simply because the physicality is what matters. The speed on the field, when you get everybody out in space and there's all this speed, everything's kind of matched up. And when you get that physical element in getting downhill and kind of empowering your will on the opposition, it changes the way the game is played, specifically to your benefit. And I think the Lions were kind of the team that, I don't want to say they're the only team, but they were kind of that team over the last couple of years that started showing that. And I said this last year on my podcast with Scott Bischoff, like, the league is starting to change. People are going to start running the football. Like I could see it. And that's the case here, where you're going to go with, 2 tight ends. You're going to have 1 running back and 2 tight ends. Or if it's 13 personnel, you're going to go 1 running back and 3 tight ends. And as a tight end coach at the high school level, I'm all about it. Give me 12 and 13 personnel. Let's run the freaking football and let's put up some cool run game concepts. And I think that's the benefit of this, is like, you don't know what you're going to get out of Sam Laporta moving forward, because herniated disc scares the hell out of me. But that said, that you're probably going to attack that position with a lot of, seriousness, and you're going to upgrade there for the long haul. Maybe not necessarily as a starter, but you're going to get some really talented depth. If that means Brock Wright, who did take a step back as a blocker, is out of here, or Shane Zylstra is out of here, that's a benefit to the Lions, because now they're getting better. And it's not just attaching the wagon to the old horse and praying for the best and just trying to get down the road. This is about getting better. And I think that's the benefit of this 12 and 13 personnel, where they're going to be able to run duo out of it. They're going to run offset eye. They're going to run, a lot of different formations. And I mean, I would love to draw it up and all that fancy stuff, but it's one of those things where there's going to be a lot of versatility with the formation fronts and the play calls and the run game and just everything as a whole on how they do things. And I think it's going to create a really fun offense for not only Lions fans, but for the Lions in general. I think Drew Petzing is going to really have a lot of fun with that 12 and 13 personnel once he gets his personnel right for it.
The perfect tight end, Darnell Washington. Give me that.
Oh,
All right, give me
that
like an
would be
offensive
amazing.
line size that can run and catch footballs and make plays.
Yeah.
Now, keep up the great work. We appreciate you, Russ. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. You've been doing a great job. I'm one of the brightest minds in Detroit sports. You guys can follow him, of course, on Twitter. He will go at you. All right. He wants the smoke. I'm just telling you, Russ. So go after Russ.
I'm not turning heel.
Full
heel turn, NWO, baby.
Yeah, Russ ain't afraid of it. You can follow him at Russ NFL Draft. Russ, keep the great work, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
There you go. Russell Brown joining the show talking Drew Petzing. And we're going to have John Maakaron as well on today to kind of share his thoughts. Russ is great, man. He's one of the brightest guys. I mean, he really does. Breaks down film, does a really good job. So follow him on X at Russ NFL Draft. Like I said, Doc joining us in a little bit. I want to give my thoughts on St. Brown's comments on the St. Brown podcast, which you guys saw. But before I do that, got to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper. I'll see you guys in 45 seconds. Pardon my interruption, but I'm here to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper, and specifically Sleeper Picks. Very simple. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players on game day or across different sports. It can be pregame, live, no matter what. And it's a ton of fun. I have my Rams Seahawks picks for you guys today. I'm going to give them out to you. It's very simple. Matthew Stafford, I have more on the passing touchdowns. He's at 1.5. I think he gets 2 passing touchdowns. He's been doing that all year. More on Puka Nacua, anytime touchdown score against the Seahawks, and more on JSN 90.5 receiving yards. You guys can copy my picks. Go over to the app, use the code CT Sports, and get involved today. Shout out to Sleeper as always for sponsoring. Now let's get back to it. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Man, he had a day, didn't he? Went on his podcast. And, I mean, I'm just going to say it, no, not trying to like soften it up. He kind of took a shot at Lions fans who didn't like the Drew Petzing hire. That's basically what it was. So he sent a message today to Lions fans that are skeptical about Drew Petzing. Let's take a listen and hear what he had to say. This is on the St. Brown podcast.
Bro, I see crazy Lions fans talking crazy. Like, oh, why would we do this? Like, bro, do you guys like have no trust in Dan? Like in the Lions? Like, you think they would just hire a random dude? Like, be for real. Like, you think they don't know what they're doing? They don't do their research. They don't interview. Like, most of you guys don't know really much about anything, about any ball.
Wow. Wow.
And you're tweeting about a coach that was hired that you guys don't like because of XYZ. Like, it's just funny to me to see. Don't get me wrong, I love all Lions fans, but they are so quick to make, judgments about who we hired, who we did this. Like, bro, just relax, calm down. Like, let the whole thing play out. Like, you guys just let it play out. Just relax. That's all I gotta say. Relax, man. Relax. Bro, I see crazy Lions fans.
All right. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I want to bring on my friend here. I think he's the perfect, Detroit Lions on SI. They've already covered it. Go read John Maakaron's work. And because John Maakaron's a podcaster. Okay. He's in the media. He knows what it is. He's kind of got a good blend of both sides, the fans, the media. He's a Swiss Army knife. So we're going to talk to him and get his thoughts on it. Covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated. Our good friend, John Maakaron. John, how are we doing, my friend?
Great to see you, Jeff. What's going on? Hope all is good. Can you believe what Booner texts me? He's in the sex swing right now. He's going around and round in 360 angles. I was like, you actually built it? He built the dungeon room, and I thought he would never, ever build it. He's actually using it, and he's swinging around upside down right now. He's having the time of his life. Don't believe him. He ain't got no flu. He's finally taking advantage of what you can do at night, man. It's great.
He finally made it big enough to get invited to those Hollywood parties, Doc.
Yeah.
He's in those like Diddy parties now. That's what I heard. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it's true or false. But Booner went Hollywood on the fellas. So he's battling tonight or not, depending on what narrative.
Battling. He's got to go a long time. He's got to go.
Yeah.
He's got to go a long time. he's battling, right? he's got to have self-discipline.
Yeah. No, yeah. That's 100,000% true, Doc. Dude, can you believe that Amon-Ra? Okay, so and I'll just say this, Doc. Like I saw this clip today, and I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay, love the guy. This is such a how do I say this? Uninformed, like, because he's speaking from a player's perspective. Okay, so and I respect that. Like, he gets paid by the Lions. He's not going to go on his podcast and be like, this guy doesn't know anything, like the coordinator they hire. He's obviously going to back the team. They all are going to do that for the most part. Fans are meant, they're going to react. They're fans. Like, fans are emotional. It's short for fanatic. Fans are going to say what they want to say. And to defend the fans, like this is how I've always treated it. When I started going on air and talking sports, I always thought, and Adam, actually, I credit him. He'd always be like, never assume the fans are idiots. These people are smart. These guys they're all smart people. Now there's people that are out there that are just tweeting out shit and saying stuff. But for the most part, fans know what they're talking about. Okay. John Morton was hard last year. There was a lot of fans that did not like him. Okay. They did not, including myself. A lot of people did not like him. He was relieved of his duties. So I would like to think fans aren't idiots and they kind of know what they're talking about. Now, are they always going to be right? No. But to say that the fans don't know ball, Doc, is, to me, as condescending as it gets. And to be honest with you, like, Amon-Ra, let's have a real conversation. Dan Campbell, as much as we love him, he's 1 for 3. Could be 1 for 4 if Drew Petzing doesn't work out with offensive coordinator hires. Like, I think it's fair for fans to question the guy, even if it's premature. What say you, Doc, on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I understand fans are going to be very highly charged about the Lions, especially coming off a year where there were expectations and it involved the coordinators, the offensive line, and this football team fell short. Injuries again for the second year. And from the outside world, then the national media narrative was, can the Lions overcome having 2 new coordinators? And so Dan Campbell, when he first started, had Anthony Lynn. That didn't work out. John Morton was more of a continuity hire and somebody that he was familiar with. That's the wrong hire. And so there's a level of, complaints regarding, hey, in 2025, Dan Campbell went to bat in a season where there's Super Bowl expectations with basically interns, and that doesn't work. Right. And, you just needed more. And look, it doesn't mean that Drew Petzing, in the end, the real reaction is nobody's reacting to Drew Petzing. Nobody really knows what he's eventually going to be about. They know where he came from. They know what his credentials are. But now it's a whole new thing. He's going to have a whole bunch of new weapons. What, in my opinion, people are mourning is the idea that, you know what, if you looked at the Chiefs, they have Steve Spagnuolo. He's a former NFL coach that now becomes elite. They had Matt Nagy, former coach that comes in and understands what goes on, and they have this level of success. I think people are mourning the fact that the Lions didn't get Mike McDaniel. And two things can be true at the same time. Jeff, I think that Mike McDaniel, I think, is going to have success, and Drew, with the weapons, might have the opportunity to do some things with this offense. But I think most people that are frustrated are going to say, you know what, over the last couple of years, maybe some drastic change is not so bad. Maybe going outside your comfort zone is not so bad. Mike McDaniel is somebody that I think would have a certain level of success, that if you paired him with a really great defensive coordinator, now you have a coaching staff that people are going to be comfortable with to go to battle with. This opens up a lot more question marks. And for the Lions, look, young athletes are confident. They always believe that they're going to overcome. But listen, the fact of the matter is a large portion of this fan base is skeptical because they've never seen it. The Lions are one of a rare number of NFL teams that have never been there before. So, yeah, it's easy to say, well, it's not going to work, and then it could land. But in the end, there were always question marks about John Morton. There were question marks about Calvin Shepard, about the offensive line, about the free agency strategy. I love it. Keep the same energy, because all that does is just reflects that we care. And there is a understanding that the Lions are close. They are a team that, if built correctly, are probably closer to the ultimate goal than they ever were. The roster is pretty good prior to 25 and a lot of the injuries, but now people are starting to nitpick certain positions, and now the coaching staff. That indicates to me an organization that's right there on the cusp. And when you don't get the guy that you think maybe can put it over the top, I think the fan base reacting that way is great. Listen, no, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I love the media. I love your last guest. I just had him on my podcast. But sports, and Jeff, you know this.
Yep.
There is no, we're talking right now at 8:38 on a Wednesday. There is no let it play out. We're talking, do we think right now this is going to work? And there's a portion of the fan base that love it, and there's a portion that are really skeptical. Let everybody have it. There is no such thing in sports as calm down. It's okay. Let's put the issues on the table, what we like, what we don't like. And for me, I'm just mourning my frustration. I went on the air right after and I said, this still could work, but I'm frustrated because I kind of believed that Mike McDaniel, if you put something together nicely, combined with Dan Campbell, could kind of form a nice offense that could really get through the playoffs. Now there's a little bit more skepticism and there's a lot more doubt, but this guy's got to prove it. Let's see what he can bring to the table.
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Mike McDaniel stuff because, you see I think what people are frustrated when they first heard the name, they're like Drew Petzing, Mike McDaniel or bust. It felt like for most fans. And then, you see Drew Petzing, he wasn't on anyone's radar, which I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that's the Bible. If he, he's the guy, you see a report of who the Lions have interviewed and you didn't see Drew Petzing, so now it's a bad hire. I'm not saying that because they actually already interviewed him already. They like him a lot. He talked to Jared Goff. But for a long time there, Doc, it was Mike McDaniel. He's going on like this world tour to all these different teams. And then you find out that he chose Justin Herbert, really good quarterback. He stays in Cali, gets the nice weather. So he got his preference. And then you see, the Lions didn't view him as quite the right fit. Had Russ on. Russ talked about it. He's not really buying too much into that. I saw reporting that Dan, liked Mike McDaniel, but maybe there's some philosophy differences in some things. To me, Doc, it felt like there was a lot of things they do similar, like offensively with the Dolphins and the Lions. But people were just pissed that the Lions, or at least Dan Campbell or whoever was to blame, didn't see Mike McDaniel as a fit. How did you kind of interpret that report? Were you frustrated, or were you like, I can see where the Lions were coming from with that?
Yeah, no, look, the Lions, some would say, did anyone else have an influence over? It's a collaborative approach. They all work together, Spielman and Brad Holmes and Sheila. Everybody gets together and they make their decision. Here's what that doesn't fit kind of means. Dan Campbell, I think, let the cat out of the bag in his media session. He said, listen, I may still call plays because I don't want the play caller to leave. And I think there is some value that Dan Campbell wants in continuity. And I get it. Mike McDaniel might have only been a one-year stop. And I'm okay with that. Like if you go and you push all in, you make a move with this roster, that's fine. I would take the chance, every year. And I love what Ben Johnson said today. The media asked him at his season ending presser, does this give you guys momentum the season that you just had? He's like, there is none. It's none of that. We got to rebuild the team and we're right back to the bottom. And that echoes what Dan Campbell said. Guys, just look at it on the surface. And this is kind of the genesis of my angst and the urgency that just now has hit, levels that are super high. Wouldn't you, Jeff, kind of look at the last 4 years winning record and say it's been a nice collection of talent? It's been a nice general manager that's kind of put together some talent that has won games and built an identity that we all can respect. Well, over the last 4 years, yeah, you've had winning record, but the team has regressed. NFC championship, first round exit. Now you don't make the playoffs. So where's the momentum? I thought that the Lions had the best group of talent that they ever had. Where's the momentum? I thought it was supposed to kind of go in the different direction, and it didn't. So to me, you just push every year. And with this talent that you have, push. And if you flop in 26, okay, maybe you take 27, you push again in 28. But the idea is to not take the big swing with the closest talent you had is crazy. And so I could see where Mike McDaniel would want maybe to make a couple adjustments to the run game, or maybe suggestions or ideas of what he wants to do of control. And it might go differently than what Dan Campbell and his influence might be. But I'm always of the opinion, listen, from the time that Dan Campbell started, he doesn't have a Super Bowl still, and the Lions have never been there. So I'm always open to entertaining bolder ideas than just, hey, let's go with a guy that has a nice run game that can use 13 personnel like somebody else. Maybe an idea like, hey, maybe all of a sudden something that Mike McDaniel suggests maybe unlocks Jared Goff a little bit more. Maybe a suggestion gets a running back that can also complement Jahmyr Gibbs. Something different. And there's no guarantee that it's going to work. But I just feel like that if you polled 1,000 NFL people, I think 90% are going to say that they felt more confident that Mike McDaniel might be better suited right now for the Lions than any other team. But listen, I can respect what Dan Campbell's looking for, and they found a guy. I'm of the opinion, and I think that's where the disconnect is with fans, is we're like, listen, we don't need no loyalty to anything. You're starting over. The offense was okay, but it stalled. And also, too, everyone uses catchphrases, Jeff. Oh, now the Lions are going to run the ball, and it's automatically going to work. Well, no, great defenses are going to stack the box, which they did against Arizona. And so what happens if you don't execute? Everyone's just like, yeah, they're going to run 13 personnel, and it's just going to work. Well, what happens if you have a great defensive line and they stack the box, and now you're looking at 2nd and 8? You got to pass the ball. You got to be able to do a lot of different things effectively, and it has to work. So I just think that people were enamored with maybe what Mike McDaniel can do, and they had more hope with McDaniel, and this guy generates more skepticism. And that's just the way it is with the Lions. Until the Lions actually have a leg to stand on, more people are going to be skeptical of every decision that they make.
I'm curious too, Doc. Like, are they? We've only seen John Morton, the reporting that he was fired. It can't be only John Morton and that on that offensive staff that deserves to be let go, right? Like, there has to be someone. Like, you're bringing in Drew Petzing, and maybe that's part. My theory. This is just a theory. If you bring in Mike McDaniel, maybe he would want his staff member. Maybe he'd want some say in who's on the staff. Drew Petzing comes in, and they get to. In which, by the way, like, I don't want Hank Fraley to go anywhere. I don't want Scotty Montgomery to go anywhere. But some of these other guys they have on the staff, like, should we be seeing any other changes to the offensive staff, or is it really just everything is on John Morton? Because it feels like David Shaw was the pass game coordinator. And I know they were fine in the pass game, but I guess technically John Morton helped out in the pass game. So what is his role? Could you see maybe more changes coming to the offensive staff moving forward? I feel like they should be making more changes.
Yeah, no doubt. The idea is maybe David Shaw might be somebody that potentially was interviewed by the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's very close to John Morton. We'll see if he's retained. I'm of the opinion you also got to look deeply. Is Mark Brunell still the right guy for Jared Goff? Can there be a freshening of ideas if you bring in a new quarterbacks coach, the running back? I do think that there's going to be some continuity. I am curious to see what the new coach does bring in terms of, does he bring in a new, he's got to bring in a new tight ends coach.
Yeah.
That obviously you're going to need 5 tight ends on this roster, but also 2 guys. Every coach that is hired is going to have good things that people like and things that don't, that there's aspects of their coaching that people don't like. And also too, the biggest question mark that people are wondering is who gets the credit, because people are saying, and all your great guests that I've seen, you on the collective, they've all said, wow, let's ignore 25, but let's love on what he did in 23 and 24. Well, guess what? The offensive coordinator also had a line coach that was pretty well respected. And guess what happens? That coach ends up leaving for Dallas. And so now people are wondering, wait a minute, who's responsible for the success of the Cardinals? Was it Drew Petzing, or was it the coach that also had success with the Cowboys?
Yep, Clayton Adams. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So you got to figure that out. And you hope that Hank Fraley is still the right guy for the job. But this last year with injuries is not the best. And so that's why I'm of the opinion you lay it all out there. And so I love when people say, well, let's just look at all the great stats in 23 and 24. And then when there's adversity in 25, what he did, let's just ignore it. No, you got to introduce it to the record, because guess what? Your football team might have the same problems. Your offensive line is young. Everyone just magically assumes that the offensive line is going to stay healthy. Everybody that they draft is going to be great. They're going to go get Linderbaum. He's going to stay healthy the whole time. You might have to deal with some injuries. And so what does that mean? That the Lions can just fall apart and have 3-4 wins and would just say, well, chalk it up to injury. No. Kyle Shanahan lost his tight end. Brandon Ayuk is a nut job, allegedly, and stopped showing up.
Yeah, Chargers O-line. Chargers O-line was injured.
Chargers O-line. Exactly. Yep. So the thing that has to happen is you got to hope this guy has the foundational pieces and can apply it with his play calling. So I do think that, Hank Fraley is well respected still. And I'm wondering, and Tashard Choice has a great relationship with Jahmyr Gibbs. So I do think that I think that Drew Petzing is going to get a lot of credit for being able to put together and work with Dan Campbell to put together a nice run scheme and an offense that can help this football team move forward. And that's the hope. But again, you have to acknowledge, how did he handle adversity? Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get a lot of touches, and you hope that he doesn't roll an ankle. You hope that something bad doesn't happen. But if it does, well, things could go. There were a lot of complaints about this guy. He has strengths, he has weaknesses. But like I said, I think the reason why the fervor is so loud for the Lions right now, I do believe with the talent that they have, it's the best talent assembled that they've had in such a long time. You're in a window. And so people are willing to take some risks to try and win, because look, Jeff, you understand they haven't won with what they've done. If you take a couple risks and it flops, hey, take some chances. We've already seen what slow and steady draft and develop brings. I think, a little gamble, a little spice to the mix might not be bad. It might work. Who's to say that, you don't build a legendary coaching staff for 1 year, you win 14 games, you win a Super Bowl, and you blow it all up? Who's to say that that's not going to, have an opportunity to work? So that's where all the fervor comes from. Athletes are more regimented, confident, slow and steady. Our process works. But yeah, Equanimous would have been great if you would have had a little pushback and been like, well, the fans might be a little grumpy since you guys are not in the playoffs and we're sitting here doing a podcast during the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, I think
that would be great. That would have been awesome.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, clearly fans are going to be upset you guys are home. I mean, that's part of it. The person you brought up, I thought I found it very interesting. It was Clayton Adams. He was with the Cardinals offensive line coach, run game coordinator, leaves, goes to Dallas. Dallas this year, they go from the 26th rushing offense to 9 with Clayton Adams. So they took a massive jump with him. I'm not saying that he's, you give him all the credit, but to your point, like, these are things you have to, like, we have to have these conversations. It's like, well, why did, and it's hard because they were so injured this year, which I understand. It's hard. You're on your 5th string running back, but you have to bring that. It's like, who is Clayton Adams? Apparently this guy is a run game guru. So, especially when, Drew Petzing's biggest trade is running the football. So I think that's a fair thing to bring up. And
Jeff, real fast too, I just want to say that, the Lions fans should be this way. You should have a side-eye approach. And that's really the role of the media, is to question these things. The role of the media is to also say, okay, yeah, there's some good traits, but there's also some big question marks that are potentially out there that could derail it. And for the Lions, athletes, they never want to bring the entire history of the organization. But in the end, that is always going to loom large over a lot of discussions. A lot of your fans that you're asking to pay more money to, they want to win now, and they're not going to be patient. Look at it, Jefe. I mean, on surface, the Pittsburgh Steelers never in their history with Mike Tomlin had a losing season, and they're chanting fire Tomlin, and they wanted him gone. They celebrated a coach leaving that never had a losing season. So it doesn't work like that. The NFL is not for long, and Dan Campbell has to get it right. I hope he does, because, man, Dan Campbell, and I get it. But also, too, the other argument, too, Jeff, is, is this 1992 again? Everybody wants to run the football. It is more of a passing league. You do get benefits from more explosive chunk plays. You see Puka Nacua. You see the opportunity there. So it feels like Dan wants to go backwards a little bit in the offense. But I understand running the football is a staple of a lot of offenses. You got to do it. But at the same token, a lot of these defensive linemen are bigger, stout. It's not that easy to just run the football, as opposed to dropping back and passing effectively in a passing league where if you touch a receiver, you get a 20-yard penalty. So it's interesting. It's interesting philosophy to think about the now dominant thoughts about Dan Campbell wanting to run the football like this.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I kept seeing too a lot, fans were, and it was mostly NFC North opponents, like, the Bears fan base, Vikings fan base. There was Lions fans saying it too, but it was like, goodbye St. Brown and J-Mo production, because Trey McBride had a massive year, and, Michael Wilson actually had a pretty good year as well, but Marvin Harrison Jr., I think no one hated the Cardinals offense more than Marvin Harrison Sr. He kept tweeting out like, this offense sucks. I hate watching it. Clearly his son wasn't getting involved, so probably there was a lot of bias there. But that's the big thing is like, what happens with the receivers? I'm not going to sit here and say that Drew Petzing is going to like hinder Amon-Ra St. Brown or J-Mo, but I do think it's fair, Doc, to bring up where does kind of Isaac Tesla kind of fit into this equation. Russ brought up, he brought up, your coaches always know it's the KYP, know your personnel. Drew Petzing is going to know they have a lot of wide receivers. And they're not going to run 13 personnel all game. Obviously, they're going to have 11 personnel at times. But did you kind of have a similar feeling? Because it felt like in Arizona, they didn't get their wide receivers, or at least they didn't develop wide receivers very well. I would point that more on Kyler. I don't like Kyler Murray. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think he sees the field very well. So I think there's some context to that. But is there concern from kind of your end of like, how does Tesla? I mean, to me, this is still, it makes the pick confusing because Jameson Williams, you trade up for Tesla. He's really good. You extend J-Mo with 2 years left. That's a whole nother conversation. But how do you feel about the wide receivers versus the tight ends and Drew Petzing?
Yeah, it's what I think what we can have some confidence in. I know we've started with the reasons why we're skeptical. Here's why it has a great chance to be successful. You have some great talent. You start with the philosophy that, okay, Dan Campbell was able to get Amon-Ra and J-Mo a little bit more involved without John Morton calling plays. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, right? Is get everybody involved. Everybody's got to eat.
Yep. And
I think that there's going to be an opportunity for that. But you're right. I think everybody listening is going to wonder, okay, what kind of growth is Isaac Tesla going to have? But I would expect that Drew Petzing is going to realize, this is a target here that we should use in the red zone, throw it up there a little bit to kind of ease up the, how do you get the box unstacked? Is throw the ball deep. And I think that's where John Morton also didn't take advantage. And here's where I think the disconnect happened between Dan Campbell and John Morton. John Morton said, I love explosive plays. But at the same token, coverages are going to dictate you don't take shots. But Jared Goff has to be more comfortable taking those shots if you have a good defense that can withstand maybe an extra interception here or there. There have to be more explosive plays. That offense was bogged down. Why did the Lions' run game not work? Because it became predictable. All you had to do was stack the box. And then I just want to address something real fast, because a guy like Easy does it in your chat, and I hear this every day. Why would they tinker? It was a top 5 offense. They scored a shit ton of points. Guys, the Lions won 9 games and they lost 8. Everybody's recognizing the patterns that when you faced better opponents, you scored less. You were scoring about 18 points a game against better opponents. Not good enough. You are not rushing for 100 yards against better opponents. So look at it from the perspective of, let's erase the Commanders game, the second Bears game. Take out some of the games where that might be an outlier. Some of the numbers are going to look a little different in regards to the offense against better opponents. Just look at the Eagles game. Look at the Chiefs game. Some of the tenets that you had, you got bullied in the trenches. You didn't score enough points. You turned the ball over, and your third and fourth down efficacy went way down. Dan Campbell's acting like you have a good team. So I understand that people love their numbers. They love to read numbers and say, wow, the Lions had the 5th best scoring offense, and they scored 28 points a game. And the offense was busted, guys. Overall, your offense was busted, and your coordinator got fired because they couldn't run the ball. That's why you didn't stack wins. You guys, remember, it's not typical for a team to go win-loss, 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 win-loss for 2 months. You can't stack wins. And then when it was crunch time, you had a losing streak. Your offense was busted. That's why the coordinator lost his play calling. That's why he got fired. That's why they want to kind of get back to a staple and maybe find a young cat to get there. So I look at their offense and say, okay, there's some things that can get much improved. But listen, you have the talent. I mean, how do you look at Jameson Williams and say, okay, don't run dig routes, don't? And Petzing definitely has the opportunity to use the middle of the field in an advantageous situation to break the zone. And I love the fact that, I see why teams want to use, because I love defense. I see why teams want to control the opposition with zone defense, but you can beat zones relatively with good scheme. You can scheme guys open. Like, you can easily get guys in dig routes in the middle of the field. You can take advantage. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is going to have the same kind of season. I think Jameson Williams also will be utilized at a high clip. I don't think the second year productivity of Tesla is going to be that great, because I think the guy that's going to get the 2 guys, and I did an article today. If you say, well, Doc is so negative at Lions on SI, I said 3 guys are going to feast in this offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is going to have maybe an all-time season in 26. I think he's going to get, creative opportunities to get the football out of the backfield. I think Sam Laporta, heaven, please let his back stay healthy and hold up. He is going to feast. Trey McBride had over 1,000 yards, had over 100 receptions. I was like, wow, it was a legendary season. And one of my big notes from watching the playoffs, Jeff, I was like, man, if the Lions can use Sam Laporta like the Bears are using Colston Loveland, it's going to be unstoppable. Like, Loveland was all over the field, running great routes, schemed open, big plays, and then they had Cole Kmet doing some things. I'm like, okay, I like that. It's a security blanket. Quarterbacks love their tight ends. If you can draft a couple or free agency or get 3-4 reliable tight ends that can run this system, I think you make your offense a lot more difficult to deal with, because you get a security blanket. They're big men. And plus, if you scheme it properly, you might get a tight end and a linebacker, and it favors your offense. That's what it's about. So, and then big picture wise too, listen, Drew Petzing has the credentials. Let's give him the respect he deserves. He's done the work. Coached at a lot of different spots, coached different positions. It's not that. The angst is, and people sometimes dismiss where the complaints are coming from. They just go, oh man, the Cardinal fans are pissed and they're just upset they didn't have the talent. No, Drew Petzing is going to be judged on his play calling. How does he sequence the plays? Does he get the team in the right spots to be ahead of the chains? That's going to be the secret, is how often does he, make the decision with Dan Campbell to go for it on 4th down? Because on 4th down, they were the worst in the league over 3 years, efficacy wise, but 3rd down was a little bit better. So his evaluation fully, and where the most question marks are going to be when you go up against opponents that know you, because opponents like the 49ers were able to read his tendencies pretty fast and make adjustments. So that's where the chess match is. And that's where I think when people see McDaniel, they see, okay, this guy can maybe think 4 moves ahead, whereas maybe there's going to be a learning curve with play calling. And so that's where the angst is that 26 should be a Super Bowl year. And going into it right now, you're like, well, there's going to be at least a little bit of some learning curve with this guy calling plays and figuring it out. And so I just think that people felt with a McDaniel, that would have been kind of the first signal of, all right, we're putting our nuts on the table and we're going to go for it. But this is going to be like, okay, let's work, blend, cooperate, figure it all out, and let's see if it works. But the crux of the matter is, what's going to determine his success is when these great defensive minds start making adjustments, stacking the box. I mean, guys, it's going to be 13 personnel is going to be figured out within a year. These guys are studying all day and night. It's going to be figured out. Stack the box, bring some pressure, blow up plays. It can happen. What do you do? And John Morton was horrible at it. When they got figured out, it was done. The offense stagnated, and guess what? The double A gap blitzes just ruined the Lions season because everyone kept doing it, and the Lions could never ever adapt to it. If this guy can get to that second level thinking, that's where this guy can shine.
How much pressure? I think the focus right now, the talk, and I'm going to get to Steve Lehman's super chat in a little bit because we'll talk about the defense. But with Brad Holmes, how much responsibility does he have in all this? Because I think Dan is the one that's going to be under pressure, which we can talk about as well, because I want to get into that conversation. But just on Brad Holmes, people are focusing on Drew Petzing, but people should be focusing more on the Brad Holmes stuff. Is how does Brad Holmes repair this O-line? Maybe get another tight end with question marks, maybe get another state. There's so many things he needs to do this offseason. So how much is on Brad Holmes from a responsibility standpoint to kind of help Drew Petzing and help this offense get back to what they do so well, which is running the football, protecting Jared Goff, and not being, blown up on double A gap blitzes?
Yeah, that's where I get that's where my angst comes in. It's like, man, that's a lot of holes to fill, Jeff. You don't know about your safeties. You don't know about, you need better from Ali McNeil. You need better pressure from the interior. You need more depth because you're probably going to lose DJ Reader. So that's where, and that's, I think, where people are frustrated is you can conclusively say that the depth that you could have benefited from if you drafted better in 24 and 25 would have showed up this year in 25.
Yes.
If you would have had a better draft, you could have maybe weathered the storm a little better. And that's the fine difference between 9-8 and 11-6. Those two games, maybe a couple players, and it adds up. I mean, the second half of the 23 draft into 24 and then 25 has a lot of players that you're not getting a lot of value from. If you could have just got 3 more players, that could have filled a need. And so the fan base said it. And also what I love about, and that's why I think Amon-Ra's comments ring a little bit hollow, is that the fans were right. If you had a better defensive line with a better scheme, this team would have been better. Everybody saw it that, yeah, you got pressure, but sacks are the ultimate ability to create a negative play. And against better opponents, there was an 8-game stretch where Aiden only had 3 sacks. So if you get 2 sacks in a game that's close later on, that's fine, but you need more impact. And you needed more impact from the middle as well. So the fans were right. Your defensive line wasn't good enough. And I think Jaylen Warren just scored another touchdown while we were broadcasting. When you needed to stop against the run, you didn't get it. You were like, what happened to the vaunted rush defense? It was AWOL. The guys also, too, which was tough to see, the Lions' defensive line was relatively healthy. DJ Reader, Tyler Williams, Ali McNeil came back, but obviously that's a big ask for him to come back. But
Davenport came back, Doc.
Davenport came back eventually. Yeah, so everybody said if they just wouldn't have brought back Levi, Josh, and Marcus and just repaired the defensive line, Brad acted like, why would Jefe and Booner and Doc and everybody keep asking about the defensive line? What's the problem? Well, most of us that do know football watched, wow, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter kind of took the Texans into the playoffs. They look pretty good. Defensive lines, defense does win championships. Seattle's defense is also legit. And I just feel like people felt like, well, if you don't upgrade it, we kind of don't feel like you're going to get to the playoffs or have a good season. And you probably need that and more to also get to the playoffs and also win a Super Bowl. So the fans recognize that there's things that the Lions need to do to be able to get over the hump. And it takes an extraordinarily amount of luck and goodwill and making good decisions that would help you. And I just think that there's a lot of holes to fill for this football team to be able to rebound quickly and be able to get over the hump, because the division's getting tougher. The AFC now, guys, the Patriots, if they end up, the guys, look at now the league as a whole. I think we can safely say the Broncos might have a chance to have some sustained success with Bo Nix and a great head coach. The Patriots, I think, might have opened up another run in them. The Texans are going to get hungry if they figure out their offense. If they unlock their offense and get healthy and give CJ Stroud, a real number one receiver. Look out. Josh Allen just got his coach fired. He might pick the next coach. So it just doesn't get that much easier. And your coach told you it just gets tougher every year. So it takes a lot of things to go extraordinarily right. And I don't know, with the money that you need to tie up, it basically, Jeff, it's like a chessboard. And it seems like once a couple holes get filled and plugged, a couple more open up. If Alex Anzalone gets a better deal, while we all say, well, yeah, he's older, that would be a big loss. That's just tough to fill. Jack can do part of it, but you also need more from Malcolm Rodriguez if he comes back, from Derek Barnes. You need more. So it's just not that easy to just wave your magic wand and say one free agency, one draft class, everything hits and you're going to start winning again. That's a tough ask every single year. But you hope that, at least starting with the coaching staff, that Shepard and this new guy can at least stabilize the coaching staff to put these guys in whoever's there in some positions to excel. Coaching matters. Coaching does matter.
I said the same thing watching the playoffs, Doc. It's very clear to me, and I've always said this about if you want to be a legit, you show me a Super Bowl winner, a Super Bowl contender, a real one. I know we call half the league contenders now, but if we're talking about real contenders, you're looking at quarterback. How good is your quarterback? How good is your head coach? And how good is your defense? Those are really the three things you're looking at, because look at the conference games right now. Rams, McVay, Stafford, good defense, good defensive line. Patriots, Drake May, Mike Vrabel, good defense with Mike Vrabel. Broncos, Sean Payton, Bo Nix has actually been playing really well. He's hurt, but good defense. Like Seattle, they're the exception with Sam Darnold. I don't think Sam Darnold's that good, but the defense and head coach are very good. I don't think they're going to win this weekend, given they don't have a great quarterback. But you look at the Lions and you say Jared Goff, I think he's a good quarterback. Maybe they can always get better, to your point. Maybe you can find one of these studs like a Drake May or something like that. But until you find me that guy, you have Jared Goff. Head coach, we like Dan Campbell. And then defense, they just haven't had really a good defense. So that's a massive question mark. But just on Dan Campbell, before we get to the defense, I've heard a lot about the whole, if Drew Petzing, hypothetically, you take his play calling duties away, doesn't work out, whatever, and you have to get rid of him. How are we talking about Dan Campbell? Because now you have Anthony Lynn, didn't work out. Ben Johnson, who was already kind of in the building, but he promoted. I'll give him that. That worked out. John Morton didn't work out. And if Drew Petzing doesn't work out, and God forbid Calvin Shepard doesn't work out, we don't know what it is. We're talking about you just can't get your assistant coaches right. And I know Dan Campbell's brought the Lions and Lions fans a ton of success that we haven't seen. But let's just look at this like from an unbiased point of view, Doc. Like if you're any other organization, you're not getting a lot of chances at getting these assistants right. So where are you at with just how much pressure's on Dan to get these assistants right? And what does it mean if he doesn't? Is he on the hot seat?
Yeah, and also too, I want to also take it one step back and look at something like psychologically and fun too. When you look at it like this, okay? So the Patriots were the bottom feeders last year. And all of a sudden, they make some drastic moves. They get a head coach with ties to the organization. They spend a boatload of money, and they get free agents galore. They take one of yours in Carlton Davis, Milton Williams, Harold Landry. They make some moves. They got a young quarterback. And within one season, they have all these wins with a weak schedule, and they're able to use their culture and get back just that fast. Now, I'm saying, listen, I understand the value of draft and develop, slow and steady, trying to do it. I respect that. And there's the notion of, hey, you build a career, you work hard, you save your money, and by the time you're 60, you get, your $1 million in the bank and you're rich. But who's to say that it's not fun to effing win the fucking lottery and be able to have a bunch of money right now? Like, hey, oh my God, I enter, I take a chance and I make a 15-leg parlay and I take $20 and I make it $2 million.
I try it every weekend.
That's fun too, right? And so a lot of fans are like, yeah, man, building it is great, and that's fine. It's the right thing to do. But take some gambles too. It puts you in the exact same spot when you've never won a Super Bowl before. So we've seen it now where teams can just rise from the ashes, and the Lions are kind of doing it slow and steady. Philosophically, and I don't want to upset anybody, but you don't get sustained success in this league unless you have a Mahomes. You don't get that. It just doesn't work like that unless you have a top 3 quarterback that is the full package. No,
and I would argue, Doc, probably
you don't get that
Hall of Fame level coach. I mean,
yes, you don't
Bill
get
Belichick,
that.
Brady, Andy Reid, Mahomes. Yeah,
It's just the way of the league. It's a salary cap league. You don't get to have 10 wins every year and be the Patriots. That's so outstandingly difficult to do. And you would argue that just look at your football team, had the best talent arguably in the history of its organization, right? And you regressed. So just look at it from that perspective of, for us, are like, just throttle it 1 year. Let's see what happens. The fan base is ready for it. We will like it more. We will have less angst if you pushed than if you're doing it this way. It's producing a little bit more pushback. You just gamble, say, okay, this is our year. Let's see what happens, and start getting some great players in here. Let's see what happens. But with Dan Campbell, look, he gets the credit. And that's what happens with Jared Goff too, and Brad Holmes too. That's where the slappies and the supporters that are diehards are like, we've seen it horrible. We don't want that. We don't want to see 0-16 and 4-12. We like, okay, if a bad year is 9-8. I look at it, it's all the same. It's all a colossal failure if you don't win a Super Bowl. So in my opinion, they are both, I believe, Brad and Dan are aligned that their contract ends at the end of 27. I would be hard pressed to think that Dan Campbell would lose his job. But right now, as we talk, people are criticizing his fourth down decisions, his in-game management. The fact is, in 2025, you brought in 2 coaches that did not help your football team get better. He's now changed as a coach. He's a little bit more corporate, and Ben Johnson's a lot more flamboyant, and Dan Campbell's a little bit more like a traditional coach now. We got to make corrections, and he kind of has mellowed out a little bit. We need kind of that fervor back from the head coach to get this thing back on track. But I think the noise will definitely be loud if they don't have success. But I would not think that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, with the collaboration that they have with Sheila, unless it's like a 3 to 4 win year and everything falls apart, then you start talking like that. But I think Dan Campbell runs out his contract, and if he doesn't win in 26 and 27, you just let his contract run out and you give him the respect of not firing him. You just don't renew his contract. I think that the noise should be loud. I am of the opinion that journalists should be that intense on like every move. Why'd you make that move? Why'd you do this? Why'd you think this? Why didn't you think that way? I just think that's the way it should be viewed, because they have the other side should not be coming from the media. They have a whole department of PR. I think the role of the media, in my opinion, should just be ask a bunch of questions in regards to why aren't you having the success that you could be having, and why are you doing that? What things are you willing to do in order to put this football team in the position to win football games and win in the postseason? So I think Dan Campbell's done. Listen, big picture wise, he's done a good job, but that's not the job. The job is not to be good. The job is to be elite and win a Super Bowl. And he knows that, and everybody knows that. The NFL, listen, Sean McDermott, you could argue, is getting support still. Like, why did he get fired? You're getting coaches that get to the playoffs every year and don't win getting fired. When you're and also too, this is also psychologically what's great is that I can share this then with you guys. Guys, think about it. Owners are like me. The owners are not fans. The owners are not the media. The owners are like competitive amongst each other. And you think Iafrate Booner, what do you think Jerry Jones is saying on the side to Sheila as a joke? What do you think he's saying to Robert Kraft when they're in these meetings? Oh, let's count our money. No, they're like, look at how many rings I got. Look at they are the ultra uber competitive to the point that a simple joke that you and I would make that would roll off our chest, they sit there and think about it. These owners are crazy. That's how you get to be a billionaire. You think you get to be a billionaire by being an average Joe and punching in at 9 and leaving at 5? No, you work all day and night and you think about your task day and night. So these owners are hyper-focused, uber competitive, and they fire guys after 1 year. Could you imagine, Jeff? I don't think I could do it in the history of my life where I'm like, I'm going to give a coach a 5-year deal, $40 million, and then in 1 year, pay him not to work. The Patriots are paying 5 coaches not to work. The Raiders are paying too. 5 coaches not to work. 5.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think people need to realize these owners are as crazy as I am. They want to win, and they're willing to fire coaches after 1 season to get to winning. So I love that about these owners. It's crazy and it's wild, but I wish our owner would be a little bit more like that. Let's go. Now she got the point where they're winning. Now you need a little bit of that craziness to try to get over the top. You got to be crazy to get this over the top because it's just that hard.
Yeah, I mean, and we have some super chats here I want to read. Duncan, appreciate the 5, says Drew is going to get everyone's cheese wet. You'll see. Interesting, Duncan. Appreciate that. You have John Morton, appreciate the $2. Says somebody said we hired Gru from Minions.
Listen, I will say this though. If I read his wiki right, here's the best part. I can give you his Pisces profile because his birthday is one day after mine. He's deeply introspective, very sensitive, very much needs alone time here and there, but very much he's a Pisces, and Pisces rule the world. Very sensitive, kind-hearted, definitely deeply introspective, thinks about things long time. So make sure, I hope that this guy's sitting in the lab thinking about how to get Isaac Tesla wide open and Jamison Williams some touches too, because he's going to need it. But hey, I like the youth. I like the opportunity. Hey, maybe a diamond in the rough that working with Dan Campbell can get after. But also too, we locked in on, and here's the other thing too, Jeff, that there's a recipe for getting people angry. You cast a wide net. Okay. It's hard to believe that. I think people just wanted the best candidate, period. And we wanted to rank him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this guy might be effective and grow into the job, but it's hard pressed to not think that Joe Brady's better than him at this time. You know, the mastermind of the LSU offense, worked with Cook in Buffalo, had a nice offense. You know, it's hard to believe that if you just waited, like maybe a couple more guys from the postseason, from the Rams or the Seahawks could come open. You know, and I just feel like people that they made a hire, but it might not have been the right hire. They might have pulled the trigger too soon, just based on the fact that a couple coaches that are still in the postseason might have an opportunity. And that's what it stinks with the hiring process, is that you need somebody in the place, in the role. But at the same token, I just think that there were a couple guys with maybe a little bit more pedigree that might have come in. And I think Joe Brady would have been great. I think he would have did a great job here working with Jared Goff and getting this offense to the right spot. So, but again, that guy also would only be here probably a year, if that. So
well, actually,
that's the problem.
Funny you say that, because by the way, I'm going to get to the rest of the super chats because I'm saving them because they're good. They're good super chats. So I'm going to save them for a second. But Nagy says,
keep them coming. Keep them coming.
Woodward Sports said McDaniel wanted one and done Super Bowl, whereas Lions wanted Steady Eddie for 3 years. Hence the culture difference, just not aligned with the fans. Can we just say this, Doc? Like, okay, Doc, you're the boss. Okay. You kind of think of it like this. If look at me in this scenario, I'm Jeff. I want to write articles. I want to work for you, Doc. And I'm a stud. Okay. I'm going to do some great work for you, and I'm probably not going to be there long for you. But there's another guy named, Joe, and Joe is, not as good as I am, but Joe will be at Sports Illustrated with you, Doc, for years. As a boss, in my opinion, you just go with the dude who's the greatest to hire. I mean, I'm not looking at how long he'll be here. I want the best chance to win right now, whether it's company, exactly, football. So I don't really believe that, to be honest. I think Dan just likes Drew Petzing. I think that's just
I have, I can just share a little bit. I've had the same 2 writers, Christian and Vito, for 5 years. I brought on Emmett because I saw his work ethic. He's kind of like my undrafted free agent. I loved what he did with the Spartans, and I brought him on to work and develop him. But I already had 2 guys and, in the mix. But throughout the course of the 7 years, we've had, great interns come in, and knowing that they were going to use the platform as experience. And that was a selling point. Like, hey, these guys are ahead of you, but if you come in and do the job and train and work and have opportunities, then you can use this as a resume builder. We've sent out a lot of people. That makes me so proud to see a lot of media members working that have Detroit Lions and Detroit Sports Podcast, Detroit Lions on SI and Detroit Sports Podcast on their resume. But yeah, of course, you look for the best of the best when they're available, and because you get the residuals. And what happens is it opens the door for future. Think about it. And it goes like this. If Mike McDaniel comes in and wins a Super Bowl and he leaves, he's going to have a little tree. You call him up and say, hey, who's next? Who's next on the tree? And he'll say, well, there's that guy there in Miami. You think about him. You stick with the same guy. You know what I mean? You install the philosophy of that guy. So I get it. This is more like Ben Johnson, but also too, guys, the last game we saw Ben Johnson in Detroit, he wasn't able to effectively run the football on 3rd and short, and he's having Jamison Williams throw the football. So you got to put it all together. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but in crunch time, you got to be able to call the plays that work and have the guys in the right position and be detail oriented and have the right scheme. And so with that said, more people would want somebody with a little bit more head coaching experience and had done it a little bit longer. So that's why McDaniel, Brady, a little bit higher on the totem pole. That's why the people just want philosophically, just get the best. We don't care if he's going to be here for a year. Just get us a Super Bowl 1 year and let's start all over that whole process. And you can get back to, I think Jeff, it's just simple. Get us the 1 Super Bowl and then you can build out however you want. You can start over, get college coaches. You can hire whoever the hell you want to hire.
I don't care.
Do whatever the hell you want. Get the 1 Super Bowl. This is the closest you've ever been, but it feels like as close as we got to the door with the championship, it feels like we've kind of gone backwards and gone outside the club, and it hurts, and that's why people are angry.
Yeah, rightfully so. Steve Lehman, appreciate the 10. He says your argument offense, which has been top 5 the last 4 seasons, yet had mid-20s ranked defenses this entire regime. You don't win Super Bowls with top offenses and bad defenses.
Yeah, and then that's the part we hyper focused on the offense because you see it's an offensive league, but yeah, you see the teams in the playoffs winning, and you're absolutely right, Steve. And he's staunchly always saying it, guys. They were making the defense that were winning in the playoffs were making impactful turnover plays regularly, 3-4 great sacks and plays and turnovers and pressures, and it's a well-oiled machine. The further you get in the playoffs, the better your defense have to be. And oh my goodness, you see the Bears, I thought, adjusted well. The nickel blitzes weren't working at first, and the Rams adjusted, but the Bears were able to pressure Stafford with all these blitzes, and they kept doing it until the Rams adjusted. It was great.
And they don't have a good pass rush.
And they don't have a good pass rush. So you definitely we spent a lot of time talking about the offense, but you definitely, I do think the heat will definitely rise on Calvin Shepard if in the first 3 weeks they're giving up 30 points in explosive plays and the miscommunication is still there. There has to be improvements. Absolutely. Steve is right. The defense might need as much more work than the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 4 teams in the playoffs, I believe all 4 defenses are top 10 scoring defenses. So, points per game, they're top 10 in points per game allowed. And they can get, like you said,
they pressure, right?
Yeah, no, but what people will say though, Doc, it's like, and I understand, like, not having Kirby Joseph is a massive, it sucks, obviously. Kirby Joseph creates turnovers, so people will be like, well, turnovers, well, we would create turnovers if we had Kirby Joseph. It's not, I'm not saying bend don't break defense that creates turnovers. You're talking about a great defense that creates turnovers on top of being a great defense. I'm not talking about giving up 1 billion yards and getting a pick at the 20-yard line. You're talking about, making Drake May's life hell or making CJ Stroud's life hell and creating turnovers in the process, which the Lions, they were a bend don't break defense that forced a lot of turnovers, but they weren't stopping teams. I mean, they've never been an elite defense like that. They have never, under Brad Holmes, they have not had a great defense. So that's the problem that people.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'm curious your thoughts. I'm curious your thoughts about it. Where do you think this team is at? Like, do you think that they can repair everything? Do you think that with a lesser schedule that this team can get back fat? Are they first? Because the question I asked that got a lot of attention, I think people were debating it, is after realistically, are they further away from a Super Bowl or are they closer? It just feels like, I know without seeing the moves made, but you can't get 6 new guys and build it. It feels like this 26 year might be a year that a playoff run is there. I just think I think they're a little bit further away than what people are really talking about.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they're, I don't think they're this far off team that's going to be bad. But to your point, like I've said this before, Doc, I think their best chance window has closed. Now, it doesn't mean they can't win. This could be a new window of adjustments and making moves and all that. But their window with Ben Johnson, you had Ben here, you had Frank here, Taylor Decker was younger, healthier, guys that were cheaper, like J-Mo and Amon-Ra and Kirby and Brian and all these guys, Aiden, Jack, Sam Laporta, all these guys were on rookie deals. You had all this money available. Like, that's over. Like, so we have to, now this is a new window where, guys are expensive. And now you have to, Jared Goff's expensive and everyone's more expensive. Ben Johnson left, Aaron Glenn left. Now you're trying to, figure out, well, what do we do I don't think this is raw mad with it. Brad has a lot to do. So I don't think it's like, we'll just repair the O-line and we're back. They have to figure out their offensive line, their defense. Can you be a top 10 scoring defense? And can you impact the game consistently on defense? And are your coordinators any good? I think that's like a big question mark that they have to figure out. There are a lot of questions, but I think if they, pretty much nail all these things, which we can discuss the likelihood of that. But if they can do that, Doc, I think they'll be in the picture for a deep playoff run. But to be honest, their fourth place schedule, Doc, they're going to win games. I don't even think people they're going to start 6-2 and people are going to be like, see, they're back. I don't give a damn until the playoffs start. I want to see what happens in the playoffs because you're going to run through fourth place teams, in my opinion, because they're better than a fourth place team. But it's really about what you do in the postseason, and that's where I'm more skeptical. How does Calvin Shepard hold up against these top offensive minds, or Drew Petzing against Vic Fangio and these great defensive coaches? Can your defense be impactful? That's the questions I have. So I have a ton of them. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what I'm saying is to win a Super Bowl moving forward, because everyone's more expensive, Doc, it just gets harder. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but it gets harder.
And also, there's an argument to be made that, we look at it now, it's a fourth place schedule, but arguably you played kind of a fourth place schedule this year. Washington, Cincy, you had some bad, the Giants, the Vikings were really that good of a team. True too, and you struggled. And also too, as I was saying on the podcast, Saleh goes to the Titans. Maybe he brings a great coordinator there. That's a little difficult. John Harbaugh might hit the ground running if they spend properly. So a couple games where you felt like, man, they might be wins, might be that. That's just, it speaks to how tough it is. And that's why I think people are clamoring for free agents that also can contribute, that are just a little bit better than draft picks. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I just think it might be too much. It might be too much to build in one off season from where they were to where they need to go. It might be just a little too tough and plus the injury, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, the linebacker. It's a lot of holes to fill right now.
Well, you're doing all that, Doc, with limited resources. You have less resources. You don't have as much money. You don't have as much draft capital. You traded some of that away. You don't have a third-round pick. So my point is, and people hear, well, the window's not closed. You're dumb. Well, the window of their best chance to win is not here. And by the way, I didn't even mention in that window what your division looked like. Bears sucked at the time. Packers, Jordan Love, they weren't there yet. They didn't have Micah Parsons. So, the division was different. So you had all these things going your way. Now the division's tougher, less resources, new coaches. There's more obstacles. Again, doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is going to be harder. That's why the NFL is the greatest thing in America. It's the best because there's a such thing as worst to first. It's the NFL. Things happen. It's a year-to-year league. This is why me and you, I've always seen it the same way as you. You have to be aggressive. The guys that take chances, are you going to hit 100% on them? No, but those who are willing to take risks, especially when you don't have a Mahomes or Tom Brady to carry you through a dynasty, those guys get rewarded, typically. Sitting and chilling and paying every guy that's up for a contract, you get to a point where you're like, shit, we have no money and we have a whole offensive line to fix. Brad, and I hate to say this, and it sounds kind of ignorant, but Brad's got to nail every draft pick. At least the first 4 picks. You got to nail these picks, dude. You got to have the only way they're going to get back is what they had going from years ago, Doc, is they had guys contributing that were dirt cheap. You have to find guys, you have to find a tackle, a center preferably, that is just on a rookie deal that can help you, because that's the only way you can save money and have benefits. Look at what all these other teams are doing. The Bears have 5 guys on rookie deals that are playing well. It's like the Lions in the NFC Championship game. So
here's where people, in my opinion, just get a little afraid, and the slappies start exaggerating to the point that it's unreasonable. They go, oh, look at the Eagles. They tried with Jalen Phillips. They lost. They didn't win. They go, oh, look at the Bears. They, did this or didn't do this. Okay, I say fine. But also look at some of the teams and include in your argument some of the teams that won. The Seahawks went out and got a new quarterback and paid him $30 million. They got Shaheed, who opens a game with a touchdown. They made an aggressive move. So while being aggressive doesn't guarantee that you're going to win, what typically does is if you do nothing, if you don't do enough, because unfortunately you are going to face some teams with an infrastructure where they've drafted okay. They have, Seattle. Look at how they were built. They drafted a great running back in Kenneth Walker. They have the pieces in place, built great. And then they just rounded out a little bit with a couple moves to be able to advance. I mean, think about it. If the Lions would have brought Darnold there, the whole world would have fell apart. But it's a move. It's something. They took a chance and said, Geno Smith's not the guy. It's got to be Sam Darnold. They wanted somebody that they felt could, within a system, operate. So they were a little bit more willing to operate and do some things. I just think that's what Lions fans want to see, is not more lateral moves, but just target guys that you kind of believe and that will contribute and be able to help this football team. And I think my number may be fair, maybe is crazy, but my transactional activity report, I think every year it's got to be around 4 or 5. You got to hit like 2 or 3 free agents, 1 or 2 trades. It's got to be 4 or 5. You got to hit and be around that 4 number. Like if you don't do it, like the Lions got DJ Reed, that was kind of an equal move to Carlton Davis, maybe slightly less than.
Yeah.
And you got Roy Lopez. Those were pretty good moves. The rest, you didn't do a whole heck of a lot to get to 4 or 5. And then, it didn't work out to where you had the best team. And especially now, I think the draft strategy, I think this year, I do think there's opportunities just based on the Lions. It's a great year to trade down from 17, maybe get back that 3rd round pick, maneuver, trade back again, maybe get to around 10 picks this year. That would be great. And guys, just look at it. The average general manager the last couple of years has been making like 10, 11 picks. And the Lions over like the last couple of years have been in the lower end of how many total picks they had. And that's not good enough, especially. And of course, they felt like their starting roster was good enough. But I think now you got to hit the draft again by getting more picks. And it might involve trading some players. But if you can get, I think you're starting at 7, 8 right now. If you can get to 10, it might be the year you push a little bit and get more picks and be willing to sacrifice a couple of players for picks and maneuver in the draft and start to stockpile this year and next year and realize, okay, we gotta kind of start going back into the draft and hitting at a higher rate than we have been. For sure, you got to hit. And listen, it's fair to say that the roster was decent to be able to say, let's take a couple chances in the draft. But in the end, I think now we can conclusively say, all right, even if you're good with how the Lions operate, injury is always going to be at the forefront of some concern that you got to have. So you got to have competitive guys in the draft that are going to stock this team for the foreseeable future. But the money aspect, I don't think is going to be too crazy because, Jeff, you're going to get $40 million in cap relief from Goff. You can get another 20, I think, from St. Brown. You can get 15 from cutting or move it if you get some savings from Decker. So you're going to have some money to kind of maneuver. But yeah, if it gets bad, you're going to have to kick the can down the road a little bit. But hey, I'm willing, take the chance now. And now's the time to do it, because if you get yourself in some cap hell, well, so be it. You're going to get some talent.
Yeah, like Corey put this, he says, what's crazy to me, this fan base jumped all over Shep, and rightfully so, even when he was working with guys from Home Depot. But with Petzing, he had a lot of injuries, make it make sense. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily call 2 All-Pros in your front 7 Home Depot guys, okay? Can we at least be real here? I mean, that's like a little excessive. I get if anyone was working with Home Depot guys, it was Aaron Glenn last year, who kept your defense competitive with Home Depot guys. Calvin Shepard had 2 All-Pros. One of those wasn't even here last year, and the other All-Pro wasn't even as good as he was this year. So I think, and Drew Petzing, I do understand some of the arguments there. Like Drew Petzing, like, dude, that roster, like, dude, the most important position on the field is quarterback. He was working with backups. I mean, he had Jacoby Brissett, so I'll give him some of that. Calvin Shepard, you had one of the best defensive players in the world, healthy, playing football for you, in the best linebacker in the world currently playing linebacker for you. So, or Aiden Hutchinson playing defensive end for you, and Jack Campbell playing defense. Like, that's where I'm not gonna. How do you feel about the injury stuff with Calvin? Because people give him a pass because of the injuries. When you had 2 All-Pros on defense.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you credit where the strengths were. The linebackers played at a high level. I thought Alex Anzalone underrated in coverage. Jack Campbell got better. Derek Barnes got to do a little bit better. They tried him on the edge. I thought that was going to be a nice idea. They tried him more. It just didn't work out to the degree that they thought that it would be in coverage and everything like that. So you look at it and you say, okay, where people get mad at Shep is, and first and foremost, you probably are not going to hear him say, well, if you take out all the bad runs, we actually had a good scheme. So you don't want to say that anymore. Like, no, all the numbers do count. That's what I think fans talk on both sides of their mouth. They definitely rip Shep for saying, hey, if you take out all the bad plays. No, you got to factor in Drew Petzing's 2025 year because he got called out for being predictable. Like people like talked about him and analyzed him, and they said other coaches said, well, yeah, we kind of figured out his tendencies and there wasn't really much adapting to what we were doing to him. So other coaches openly said it. So that the big knock on his play calling was it was predictable. So he's got to mix that up, the play calling. But here's the issue with Shep is that people look at the Lions' overall defensive scheme and kind of don't agree with it. They say, man, maybe you should play a lot more 3-4. Maybe you got to play a lot more nickel, a lot more zone. They said, hey, why are you playing that much man when you might not have the best defensive line to be able to marry that? It was kind of like they kept saying, well, yeah, we got to marry the pass rush and the secondary, but they never were able to. It was like, man, they were asking Amik Robertson to cover for like 4 seconds and they never got there. And I think people are like, man, we don't like your crush the can philosophy. We don't like pass rush that takes longer than 3 seconds. We don't like big lumbering defensive ends and interior. Like in the end, I think Shep really got the brunt of the problem for the style of player that Brad Holmes brings. Like I don't want lumbering defensive ends anymore. Okay, you got one in Hutchinson. I want the next guy to be a twitchy guy that can get to the quarterback in 2.3 seconds and fly up the middle. Kind of like how we were seeing with Milton Williams and others as well that can pressure the quarterback. We need a defensive tackle like Tyleik Williams to kind of be able to win a little bit in pass rush and get to the quarterback, push the guy backwards. So
or your top 5 D tackle, Lee McNeil,
you got to be able to adapt a little bit. And I think people also said, well, you did mix in zone, but then there was a lot of miscommunication. It didn't go right. And it fell off. And people saw last year, to your point, Aaron Glenn lost all his defense. They kept making plays. They still won 15 games. So it was a learning year and of course, that's what sucks is that in a Super Bowl year, you had a guy learning on the job and there was no adjustments. There was not a lot of adjustments that were made in game. And Kelvin Shepherd admitted it. He said, well, once teams started to the biggest point that was the most glaring, Aaron Rodgers figured out our defense and picked it apart. He was like, oh, I can do this. I can see the pressure here. He figured it out within a couple plays and it was off to the races. So you got to be able to adapt where, hey, maybe we try this strategy and it's not working. Maybe we got to try some different strategies with stunts and blitzes and pressure at different times. And I think too, what everybody wants to start with, let's just start with the very basics. What we love with the 49ers is Robert Saleh can win with 4 guys pressuring the quarterback without having to blitz at a 50 to 60% clip.
Everyone dead.
4 guys can pressure just 4. You can actually line up 4 dudes and they can just win. And the Lions could not do that to the degree that was effective enough to impact quarterbacks. And that's what you got to start with is you need a different style player and a little more aggression in the scheme to be able to win and play good defense. And then also too, the biggest part is that I think the biggest adjustment Brad Holmes can make is he's got to do a lot better job with his cornerback evaluation. You got to bring in dogs that can cover and intercept the football. You got to bring in dogs. You got to revamp that.
That's a position he loves to scout.
Yeah, I stop. No, that's not working right. Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton. You paid Cam Sutton. It didn't work out. Terry Arnold is still developing, but there might be an argument you missed out on someone maybe a little bit better that's playing on the Eagles. And you realize, man, you might have to revamp within the system of, okay, if we play a little different, maybe we can target a different style of cornerback and maybe stop sending the cornerback into running backs like a missile because their shoulders keep getting hurt. So maybe we can kind of keep them a little bit healthier so they can stay out there to try and be out there a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance, man. It's tough. The Lions want to play this crushing physical style in practice and in games, but the end result is there's nobody left to play it by the end of the season.
Shout out to my guy, by the way, Streams Only. He says, Bucks, I didn't even think about this. The Bucks coordinator and Eagles coordinator got fired. Those were Shepard's 2 best games. I
There you
mean,
go.
I'm not trying to. Again, it
Yeah.
sounds like a anti Calvin Shepard, but that is a fact. I mean, his most impressive games were against two coordinators who were fired this season.
Yeah. It's foundationally, you say there were stretches where the defense looked like, okay, it was where it needed to be, but it needs to also translate to a variety of different players. And when you have that many injuries and it got too leaky, just far too many explosive plays. And that speaks to scheme, attention to detail, and his coaching. I mean, I think the talent, I think that the best way to describe the heat that the fans have with Calvin Shepard is they felt like the coaching didn't exactly put the team in the right position to make plays versus the strengths of the opponents that you had. And I think that's where, when you have an elite defensive mind, that doesn't happen where, okay, you give up one explosive play. It doesn't end up being where the second half of the year you give up far, far too many explosive plays, especially when you needed to win to get into the postseason.
By the way, we got another super chat question for us. Shout out to you, TM Martinez. Appreciate the $5. Appreciate you for watching. Question: what are the chances Dan Campbell snatches play calling from Petzing the way he did Morton, and what week might it happen?
I joked that was a fun bit. A lot of people are going weeks 5 through 7. I got my money on week 9. Dan's gonna have it by week 9. Could you imagine if that happens again? It's gonna be a circus. He can't do it. I just think that no, he can't do it. You just say, okay, I'm not going to start that circus again, because the poor guy is gonna get. It's awkward when you're talking to a guy that it's a code. When you get stripped of your play calling duties, we know you're getting fired, and it makes it real awkward. So just let him do it all year. If it's a flop, you just fire him and keep it moving. I think that in the end, Dan, you saw Dan was grumpy throughout the year. He was not happy. Losing bothers him. You now know, based on his wife's podcast that she did, he takes it hard. He is into it. I respect that. One mistake that he made, I just would have in the end, I know that it was tough. You just probably should have stuck with John Morton calling plays. It would have been a disaster. You fire him. The idea was he took it over, but you started to see that the attention to detail fell apart on the offense. A lot more procedural penalties, a lot more times where there was guys in the huddle that shouldn't have been at wrong times. And so you saw the penalties kind of creep up. And so Dan Campbell needs to oversee everything, make sure the detail in practice is where it needs to be, make sure he's also paying attention to the scheme on defense. You just let Drew call plays, and if it stinks all year, you go down with the ship. You made the decision, you let him learn, and it's just a full year of learning. And if it sucks, and you go from there.
We got another question here. I want to find it. Terry says, Jeff asked Doc, should the Lions cut bait with Decker and Glasgow?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that, Decker gave up a lot more pressures than he probably would like. He thinks he can still play. He has value, but I think that I just think that when you play to that degree and have to wake up at 6 a.m., I tend to think that I'm leaning toward he's going to officially retire. There's a lot more there. He could come back for one more year, but I do think you got to start to at least look at his serious replacement. And right now, Brad Holmes wasn't willing to put the pressure on Giovanni Manu. I feel like, I get it. You don't want to have him think about it all off season. You tell him he's got to earn a job, but I think it would have been cool if he would have said, yeah, we expect Giovanni to be ready and he's got to do the job. We drafted him and we drafted him in a position where we feel like he's got to be after and put it on him. Let's see what he's got and see. But, I do think that there's room, and listen, it's the most important position. I would move Penei Sewell to left, and I think you can have a player handle the right side, maybe a young player or a free agent, because I think Penei Sewell can be an all-pro at any tackle spot, and Jared Goff needs to be protected. You don't want to have really too many mistakes. So we'll see how they address it, but I'm leaning toward Taylor Decker retiring, but I would, it's tough. How do you sell that to a guy, 11-year vet, and you groom him out for the cap? That's a shrewd business, but one in which I could see it would rock the boat a little bit, but sometimes you need the cash, man. Sometimes you need Glasgow, I think, has played his last down, might be in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is what they do at center, Doc, because you would think with Drew Petzing and a complicated run scheme, and didn't Jared Goff, if I'm not mistaken, prefer Graham over Tate because of his veteran experience, which I'm not hating. I think if you're a quarterback, like, dude, I'm not going to have a guy learn on the job. He's in front of me. I mean, he's supposed to have all these duties as a center. Wouldn't that point to them bringing in someone in free agency if you're going to add a new center? Not that they can't draft one, but to expect a rookie center to learn on the job, Doc, is that a little unrealistic to start?
Yeah, it's got to be
experience.
That's a tough position. You got to manage the checks. You got to make sure that the communication's right, and you got to handle the double A gap blitzes. You got to be able to maneuver. You got to keep Jared Goff upright. You got to be able to do a lot of things. It's an expansive position. I still would think that guard is the best spot for Tate Ratledge. I don't want to go into this year again with Tate Ratledge learning on the job. He didn't take that many live center reps. So go out there and see if there's an opportunity to get somebody that has some veteran playing experience. Ideally, it'd be Linderbaum, but we'll see if he ends up going to the Giants or staying in Baltimore. It seems like some rumors are starting to surface that the Baltimore Ravens might blow it up. We shall see. But free agency is going to be key. Yeah, I think you go center in terms of free agency, and you target. I think that I look at it like offensive line. You might want to expedite that growth pretty fast, being that run game is important. Learning is tough. So I would expedite that and go more experienced veterans and draft some defensive linemen for depth.
I saw a comment in here, which I think is, I don't know, I never really thought about it. Let's see. AG's Burner, I think, put it in there. If Dan could go back, do you think he would have given the job to Tanner Engstrand, or you think he's happy now? He's fine with not doing that? Because John Morton obviously didn't work out, so it's hindsight. But just looking back, do you think they? Yeah, no, I know people laugh at Tanner Engstrand in New York. Like everywhere I look with Jets fans, they love Tanner Engstrand. They don't think he's a problem. They think he's fine. They just didn't have quarterbacks.
No, I asked that early in the year. I got laughed at by the media. I was like, maybe I put a column out at Lions on SI. Did the Lions let the real genius leave? That didn't go over well. People were like, come on, it's too early. It's like week 3. I'm like, listen, these are stuff we talk about. I do think that, listen, what happened was the fact is that he wanted to be a coordinator. And I feel like Dan Campbell wanted some, they felt like, okay, John Morton would have grown as a play caller in regards to what he learned 10 years ago. It just it wasn't there. And also too, Tanner Engstrand would have had the same kind of tree as Ben Johnson, would have been aggressive, but also there would have been a learning curve as well. I felt like Dan wanted to work with John Morton based on his knowledge of defenses. And he felt like, well, given that there's going to be a learning curve, that the talent on the field would eventually work itself out. The problem was that the run game was so bad. That was the same weakness that he had 10 years ago. There was just a de-evolution of the run game. It just collapsed the entire offense. And so Tanner Engstrand would have been interesting, but they still would have had the same learning curve. I don't think that would have helped in 25 to be able to win a Super Bowl, but maybe it would have been the continuity you were looking for, and probably would have produced some results in the run game because of the affiliation that he had with Ben Johnson. But again, play calling is not easy. It's not something that you just say, hey, scheme up an offense and then call the play and then it's magic. You're successful. Tanner Engstrand had a lot of games where the Jets didn't score 20 points and it got loud. You got to have the puzzle fit, and it's got to be effective too. So that's where, if I looked at it and I go, man, if Ben Johnson was going to leave, first of all, what influence did Ben have on John Morton? Did he recommend John Morton? Did he say, oh man, that's a great mentor? What was that level of why he picked that guy? Because he didn't have experience. I would have went maybe in 25 with somebody else, maybe outside the organization, that could have changed some things, that would have been able to do something. So that's a big mistake. But yeah, continuity is key. Maybe Tanner Engstrand might have been the guy. I asked it on Lions on SI, but at the timing of when I asked it, all the fans shot it down. They were mad. They were like, oh. I'm like, listen, I'm open-minded to talk about a lot of things. I don't care what you guys think about it.
Now, shout out Khalid. Thank you for the $10. Is it Khalid or Khalid? What's the correct pronunciation? I don't know.
Khalid Muhammad, baby.
Appreciate the 10 though, my friend. He says, Ahmed Ra out here talking crazy. Bro has been a fan of the Lions since he played for them, while we've been fans hoping for our entire lives to win a Super Bowl. Pathetic of him to say that.
All right. Yeah. Listen, athletes, listen, it does not make sense. Media and on this side, nobody should be supporting that. But on his side, he's ultra competitive. He's somebody that thinks that everything's going to work out. The organization's I joked on the Lone Wolves podcast. I said, listen, if they pay me $30 million, I'm going to be like, this place is the greatest place on earth. I love the ground they walk on. Miss Sheila's great. Dan's great. You guys don't love Dan Campbell? Dan Campbell paid the guy $30 million a year. So, that's going to make him, he's got 120 million reasons to be like, y'all don't trust Dan Campbell. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you never say that. No, he's not. You should never question your fan base and he's young. We're going to do that. And I'll do it loudly because anybody can go 60 years without getting to the Super Bowl, right? No. The fans should look at the team side eyes, always look at the team critically. And their job is to go out and perform and also know the history of the football team and understand that the reason why the fans are that loud is the organization has never been to the Super Bowl. The fan base is starving for success, and there's a yearning for something they feel like they're very, very, very close to, and something that they feel like the decision makers need to make is not happening. And again, you don't say that publicly. And listen, I love that St. Brown does a podcast. It opens up a lot of discussion points. But again, he's a young man that's very ego-driven and very confident that the Lions can turn things around. And you just listen. The simple way to answer that is, listen, guys, we know that the last opportunity didn't work out. We turned the page. We got to look ahead, and we're going to try as players to do more to make sure that this hire works out a lot more successfully and stay with us, for the 26th season. The opportunity is going to be there for us to get back to the playoffs and get back to our goals. That's all you got to say. You never mention your feelings about the fans because listen, and what's funny is it shows his youth. Guys, literally in the end, Twitter is loud, but it's not exactly the exact representation of the entire fan base.
The Twitter world is fake. I believe it.
Yeah, it's not fake. It's real. It's real, but it's exaggerated to, let the loud,
that's a better way to say it,
vocal minority be very loud and start things. But in the end, the fans support you, but it's just wrong. This fan base knows football top to bottom. And they know the intricacies of the cap. They're supporting multiple podcasts. They read everything, 3 newspapers, 5 podcasts, great content creators all over the place. This fan base knows football top to bottom. And they know one thing, that when they look at that trophy case, there ain't shit in it. And so until someone puts something in it, this fan base is going to be loud. There's only a small segment of super fan slappies that just go, do whatever and be patient. The rest of us are going, put this in a spot where you're going to win a Super Bowl. And so I get it, from his perspective, but you can't say that out loud ever done. You can't say that.
No, you can't. We got a couple questions here. 4 to hit. Habibi, if the Lions will make the playoffs next year, you think Booner will break his sex swing?
Oh, I got reports. Listen, he took a pill and he's still doing his thing. He's like on round 3. I'm like, Booner, okay, man, he's made up for lost time. Booner is happy. He's going to walk in tomorrow, the happiest podcaster in the history of podcasters, man. Listen, I don't advocate for guys in their 20s and early 30s to take those kind of enhancements, but Booner tried it, and he's been doing his thing. So
he's like Jack Campbell, plays 100% of the snaps.
He plays all the snaps.
He's out there every snap.
Yeah, he's down. I think he told me he took HIMS, HIMS. He took the HIMS, and he's doing his thing, and he's very, very happy. He's in a good spot in life now. He'll be smoking a cigar probably in the next 6 minutes, and I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy that I was able to step in anytime for my man Booner, and I do this for you guys anytime, man. It flew by. I'm like, hour and a half. Let's go. I did an hour before. You know what? I pick you guys up anytime. You guys are great.
Yeah,
and I listen to your collective too. You stood toe to toe. I'm proud of you. You know what? I'm very proud of you, Hefe. They brought up that you crashed out and you owned it and said, there's a reason why I crashed out. And I'm very proud of you. You stepped up your game working with the journalists, and it makes the show a lot better. You inputting, speak up a little bit too. The journalists make the show great, and you hosting it makes the show really a must watch. The collective is on my list of must watch every single Wednesday at 6. I get mad if something happens and I can't watch it.
Yeah, you've been on my ass, Doc. You've been saying you gotta speak up a little bit here.
You gotta speak up. Exactly. It's a 4-man show. It's not 3. It's a 4-man show, and your voice is just as valuable as theirs.
Appreciate that, Doc. Jesse says, mailbag, Doc, you think if the Lions hired anyone else other than McDaniel at OC, people would bitch just to bitch, right? Second, isn't funny people are bitching about the wrong side of the ball. D-line still blows.
No, defense. Listen, right now, offense sells tickets, but you're right. No, Booner brought it up on a show here. The defense got to be talked about. It's not good enough. It is not talked about enough. It'll be fixed, hopefully addressed. And look, the next time we will talk to Brad and Dan as the combine in Indy, those questions will be asked. Fire them up. We'll ask why they did certain things. Will the defense get to a level where it can be playoff ready? And no, the idea is most people, I think, were going to have the feeling of hope throughout the next. When you lose, it's tough. It's not a good feeling when you were supposed to be a Super Bowl team and you don't even make the playoffs, and you go through where all the outside narratives where people were pointing at us and going, man, your team has coordinators that are new. You got a new offensive line. You're nothing. And we're all like, yes, we are. We built all this. And then everything fell apart. So it's tough. And people were like, you know what? We need a little bit of infusion of hope. And
Right.
McDaniel represented that. Like, okay, he's a proven, a guy that had the number one offense and got to 4,500 yards. And that guy is not the best quarterback in the world. He did some things. And maybe they felt like that guy could also be a representative of somebody that got fired and came back. And I think they would have been okay with Brady. There still would have been some grumbling. But when you go with a guy from the Cardinals who worked with the Browns, you're like, man, who was coming off of a bad season, people are going to have a lot more questions. And then also, too, and here's what fueled it, in my opinion. I have never, and maybe I'm online a lot, but I have never seen ever another fan base openly message the reporters and national reporters, this guy stinks. We don't like him. We're glad he's gone. Openly, to the degree that Peter Schrager's like, this guy's cool. And other media members are like, you ain't watching Cardinals football. This guy sucks. Loudly. So all of us are like, no. And the Bears fans are like, your window's closed. The entire internet was like, you got, and just, I think, pissed everybody off that you didn't get the guy you wanted. And then Cardinal fans are like having a kumbaya party. Like, thank you for taking them. That was not, we wanted to instill a little bit of fear that the Lions were back. And this move didn't do that psychologically.
It doesn't mean it won't work. It could still work out, but it's just the where did he come from side of it.
Right.
You know?
Who?
Yeah, I've been calling the guy Dan. I've been calling. I said Dan Petzing, and I know it's Drew Petzing, but I keep saying Dan Petzing. It's like, we'll hopefully this year we'll find a lot more about him. I appreciate the hell out of you, Doc. You did great today. You came in clutch. You're always clutch when we need you. Hopefully Boone feels better, whether it's some Diddy party or stomach flu or food poisoning. I don't know what the hell it is, but he's out. You stepped up to the plate and you held it down today, Doc. I appreciate the hell out of you. You guys should check out Doc. He's live. You're live like every freaking day. I mean, you're grinding. I'm impressed. Not too many people are doing the live every day on YouTube thing, like every day, and you're doing it. So you guys can check out Doc.
Thank you.
Detroit Lions on SI on YouTube. Read his articles as well. Link will be in the description. Check out his work. Follow him on Twitter as well, Detroit Podcast. He tweets opinions out. Very opinionated. That's why I love him. Doc, appreciate the hell out of you, my friend.
Yeah, in crunch time, count on Jeff and Booner. Thank you for having me. Anytime you need a day off, you need 2 hours, give me a call. I can host a show by myself. You know it. I appreciate you guys for having me. Let's talk next week. And like always, go Lions. This fan base knows a lot about football. And listen, it's going to be a hell of an offseason. Let's go through it together, man. Let's go.
There you go. The DOC, John Maakaron, joining the show. Appreciate all you for tuning in with everyone else in the chat. I mean, we had 200 plus people in here at one point watching. Shout out to the Doc. Shout out to all of you, all the super chats, all the comments. We appreciate it. Before you leave, hit that like button on the show. It's free. It takes a second, and it helps the channel. Hit the subscribe button. You can turn on a notification bell. You get alerted every time we post. And get your merchandise, officialctsports.com. I just ordered myself more things because I love the merch, and you guys should get some stuff as well. And if you remember, there's a discount code that's in the post section I put in there just for members. So if you're a member of the channel, you get a discount code for the merchandise. Until tomorrow, we'll be back. Scott Bischoff's on tomorrow. Sam Flannel's on tomorrow. It's going to be a great show. We'll talk draft with Scott Bischoff. We'll talk Drew Petzing, or I want to say Dan Petzing for some reason, and Lions football with Sam Flannel. But until then, we appreciate you. Have a great rest of your night. Until tomorrow, peace.